Yes. So tell me, how are you? I mean, besides what you told me in the
Uh,
message.
I am busy, kind of tired, too many things going at once. So Q4 is kind of crazy for us right now. And there's a lot of things that are happening ASAP on the last second, and it's kind of hectic around here, you know.
We're organizing a networking
And I'm
event.
trying to figure.
Oh, okay, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, I'm just wondering, if this is what I signed up for originally, but
I remember all those struggles. One thing that came to my mind while I was listening to you, we're organizing a networking event in Belgrade, and I invited a friend of mine who runs a huge, I would say, like a media agency in Belgrade to join us. And he said, man,
yeah.
like my colleague is out, she's sick, and I'm just trying to get myself to do only basic things until the end of the year so I can survive.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Sort of that, sort of like that. Yeah, it's been a crazy year because I've been merging with another agency with friends, so it's very challenging to figure out new kind of ways of working, to making everything kind of click. You know, yeah, to be on the same page, basically, right?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, I'm the one who dropped the agency model because of. I mean, I don't know why. There are multiple reasons. Most of it is because I now have a chance to do the work that I wanted to do, not somebody else come in with a strategy and I
Yeah,
do
that's a
the other things. I mean, you do different stuff, not only performance. You do creativity
yeah,
and
yeah.
creative stuff and storytelling. That those two cannot be compared, but I feel so relieved now. I got these moments when I feel like, because I'm usually working in an office with a group of people. We all do certain projects together, and I'm like, when they're not in the office, I'm like, maybe I need to hire again a couple of people. I got that drive,
Yeah.
but then like after a few hours, my head clear.
Yeah, I mean, you like I know you and a couple of people like count on the fingers of one hand, so not many that I think successfully transitions to this consulting kind of thing, right? Because it basically that's the instead of the agency, let's say business plan, you're more on the consulting side, so you don't need that many people, you don't need that many interactions. If you need to, you hire them in, right?
Yeah, but and there is one thing I still like the execution. I love to do the execution, but
Yeah.
these are the moments. Sure, I do it for the clients from time to time, but I do the execution for myself and for the
Yeah.
company, and it's even the bigger drive when you do it for yourself. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe I lost you for a second. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're gonna jump in when you do. So, till we have Wojtek back with us again, today we're going to talk about how to use creativity and storytelling in B2B
Mm.
tech. Those are the things that are missing. Yeah, we have you now. I just did the intro, so you can jump in. And I told the people that we're going to talk about using creativity and storytelling in B2B tech,
Yeah.
because that's the thing that I see missing probably the most, and it's related to talking to the customers and all the other stuff. Okay, so before we jump into all of this, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your working history and how did you
Yeah.
got into all these storytelling things, creative director stuff, working on some awesome
Yeah.
videos, awesome
Yeah.
content.
Yeah. So thank you, first of all. Yeah, I started out because I wanted to do movies. I think a lot of people in my kind of industry, which is, filmmaking, creative, advertising, they end up in advertising because they need the money. But, I think most of us photographers wanted to do Star Wars, wanted to do something. Either if it's Star Wars or, if somebody likes Jarmusch, like it doesn't matter. You wanted to do movies, and at some point in our lives, you find out that I don't want to say it's impossible because you never know, but you need to make a living, and you want to make a living doing something that you love, and it kind of you finish here. So I started a production company, Black Rabbit, over a decade ago, which I wouldn't recommend starting the same way that we did, because we started, instead of having, working as freelancers and finding clients and all right, let's pull these clients together and make a company. We started a company, made the logo, made the website, and then we sat down and said, all right, how do you find clients? So I don't recommend doing that. That's the other way around. But finally, at some point, we started getting traction, and we started adding as well creativity into what we do, and I think it clicked. Of course, there's a lot of luck involved in anything you do, but you have to be ready to exploit that luck. And I think we were, when a couple of cool projects came our way, we were able to quickly say yes and execute to a level that made the clients happy, and they started coming back to us, and that's what turned into a long-term relationship. And over the years, I always did part production, part being the creative director, part being the director of the videos, part being this copywriter. But as you get older, you want to have more time for yourself. So I kind of started transitioning into this, kind of creative director role, overseeing role, a bit of a marketing role. Lately, I discovered marketing 2 years ago when I had to, when there was COVID and I needed to start doing something to find clients for my agency. And there's a quote that if you want to get new results, you have to do something new. So I knew that was the thing I didn't do. I didn't put myself out there. I didn't do marketing in a way that's like professionally. And I started doing that. I started learning. I did some courses with the mini MBA in marketing by Mark Ritson. I like, if you can, like, do it. That's an amazing experience. After doing those, there's this. I thought that I could do marketing like once a week for my company and I'd be fine. After a while, I said, no, that should be the other way around. That's like marketing's like there's so many things happening. But I found this kind of new love for this job, for marketing strategy. This is fun. I mean, I always, in a sense, did that, but I wanted to understand why clients, gave feedback the way they did, why clients wanted something the way they wanted to do, because they did, sometimes they don't explain fully in the brief why is this, or why are we doing it that way. And I wanted to know why that was. This kind of new world of marketing opened up to me, and I started realizing that there's a lot of interconnected things and stuff that you can do, and stuff that we could leverage, our let's say storytelling, video production kind of things that we do to a bigger world, let's say.
What were some of the things that you saw when you kind of started digging into why they want to create like a specific narrative for the video, or why do they want to do a series of visuals or whatever it is? I'm kind of interested in that. What was your reaction when you saw what's behind them?
So I think there's a saying that I think it's an Italian saying that you shouldn't see how sausage is made and how politics is made. And I think that same applies to marketing strategy, because we assume, or I assume, and I was at the end of the tactical, let's say road, right? We did the tactical execution of it. And you always think that there's some very serious thought behind what we're doing. And it turns out that most of the time it's not, and the more I learned about how marketing should be done, with positioning, with research, with the, pain points, in a very like, and it turns out that most clients, even the big ones, it's they lose that. In a big organization, you can really lose that insight, that information, and you rely on a PowerPoint deck that's 5 years old with their ICPs and pain points, and everybody says, "Oh, that's that," And you ask them, "So, but what's the strategy? What's your messaging?" "Oh, this is this," but it hasn't been thought through too much, especially in big corporate. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of politics, and if someone doesn't know how to traverse that, their best idea, their best strategy might not get executed. So that was a big kind of shock, that we always thought that these marketing, divisions know their stuff. And there are some that do, but not all at all.
I mean, let's say you work with some of the biggest companies in the world, right?
Yeah.
Related to specific stuff. So it's not like
Yeah.
you only work with the small ones or medium ones from Poland, right? You work with on the worldwide level.
But I don't think it doesn't. It's there is a sweet spot. I think the from a filmmaking production perspective, it's always funny that the smaller clients treat the smallest budget as a huge investment, and a lot of people laugh at that because compared to a big client that will pay that same amount of money, like, oh yeah, sure, that, thanks for the work, instead of doing 10,000 revisions. But if you look at their percentage of marketing spend for those little companies, that's a huge amount of money. That's why they react the way they do. And that, for example, that gave me some perspective on how to talk to clients, how to react to clients. Because, when I started doing strategy and marketing budget for my marketing, you get to understand, should I do that extra 1,000K here? Or should I add that $1,000 here? And each $1,000 makes a difference at some level, right? So it gave me some perspective for sure on how to approach different clients. But in terms of I assume you're asking, which level of business has the best marketing kind of organization in it. I would say that, let's say the medium sized marketing. I think the 50 to 200 person organization, I think they have to have it nailed down very completely to be able to execute very well. And I think that's where a lot of good marketers go, probably because they feel potential, probably because they're startups and they want to get on the equity if it works. So there's a lot of good people there. The smaller businesses usually fend for themselves. There's usually that one marketer who does everything. And even if that's the best market in the world, they can't do everything by themselves, right? I think that's the plague. And on the high end, it's crazy. Like you come up to great organizations like, I don't know, Coca-Cola, Burger King, where their marketing is just amazing. But you see a different organization of a similar size, and their marketing is totally in the drain. Not by design, I think, but a lot of companies, especially B2B companies, rely on their sales force very much. And marketing, when we're going into B2B, and marketing kind of stays as the support role, which, to be honest, at some point is fine. I mean, I know companies who are extremely successful, where marketing is like this, right? And you have to wonder, like, if you're this, if you're the CEO and you have, dozen or tens or hundreds of quarters of profitability with that setup, why would you change, right? Why would you suddenly say, oh, let's invest in, brand, and let's invest in doing content for dark social, if their sales force is like kind of doing that by their own, in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, I ask you about the sizes of the company. You mentioned that only for one reason, just so listeners can know, which types of the companies have you been working with, and where do you get the insights, right? And you elaborated it nicely. And the last thing that you said, it's like in most B2B companies, the focus is on getting the leads.
Yeah.
Now the new one is getting the revenue, right? And it focuses on performance, right? And we can do it now. All depends how do we call things, but there's brand, there's demand, right? And most of the companies are focused only on one function, which is demand. And it's not like creating demand, it's just closing the existing demand, which means a lot of SEO, a lot of Google ads, a lot of networking and events. So basically everything when you already have the intent to do something and to talk about yourself and to close the clients, right? So it's not like you are focused on your customers. That's the part with brand. And I see that shift slowly coming from B2C. I guess you see the same because you worked in B2B and B2C as well.
Yeah. To be honest, that shift is still very subtle, I think. To be honest, don't get me wrong, I love, the people on LinkedIn, but I think it's a kind of a bubble, a marketing bubble, where we talk about, doing that, brand B2B and et cetera, et cetera. But, and for some companies, probably that would be a great way, especially for companies who are suffering, who have problems, who don't know why their sales are falling. And there's a lot of research, by LinkedIn Institute or Ehrenberg Bass, or just data from Effie's or something that shows, where's the money at, what to do, and like showing that creativity does work at the long run, right? That building, brand advertising or brand messaging also helps the sales activation as well. And so there are tons of data, but I think because we're all people, and not every marketer is super sharp, and not every creative director is super sharp. It's normal. We're not everybody is a rock star, so not everybody has that star power to persuade the CEO or the C-suite to do something, right, or to change. And sometimes we're just there. I work for a lot of clients where I try to come up. We always propose 2 or 3 things, right? The crazy thing, and the same thing, right? Or the even more crazy thing. And I like that opportunity to be able to show the crazy thing and to explain why the crazy thing works, in my opinion. But like 50% of the time, it's always it's the safe thing, usually because it'll take too much time internally to process that and explain everything. So coming back to sales and brand, I always suspected it has to be a mix of both. And everybody who says no, it's only this or only that is kind of
Exactly.
is I don't know, it's crazy. Because even if you have a sales led organization, you need some brand. Like you don't need, there's some brand needed, right?
I mean, sales will be easier. That's just that.
Yeah, I mean, sales is easier when you're trying to sell a brand that your client knows about. Like that's just easier.
I
And
mean, it
it
just
can be
opens the door, right?
yeah, it can be as simple as that. That's why there's a lot of, even in organizations, when they don't spend millions of dollars on TV ads, there is marketing that's working, beneath the ground, making sure that the brand is, taken into account in Gartner research, or it's taken account with analysts, that they have a relationship with analysts, they have relationship with organizations that do rankings. That's brand building. Even if you think that's not brand building, you're building a brand. You're showing the world that, hey, we're good, and again, helping sales make that first call.
Exactly. I mean, we're not going to get into the brand versus demand. We had enough of it. But what I wanted to say and kind of set up the direction is, we are now in a moment when everybody does ads, everybody does everything.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes to those things, we know these things work, and everybody does them because they know that they work. Now, it's about, do they hit the right audience? Do they help you differentiate so they choose you based on the others? Do they help you lower your cost of acquisition? And it comes down to creative, to the story that you say. If you look at like meta ads, basically we are now in the moment where you don't need to add interest when you do the advertising. Meta basically analyzes your copy, your creative, no matter if it's like the video or it's a visual, and based on that, it directs your ads to the right people. On LinkedIn, if you are going after 4 or 5 people in your target group seeing the ad that you want to do, and you need them to see at least 4 or 5 times, all depending what's your goal. If you don't want to end up as one of those brands that just got blocked or removed from their feed, you need to change the creative often, and you need to be at least not boring. So when we look from that perspective, I want to get into, what can companies do specifically to kind of nail their storytelling, do the creative, and basically differentiate through those
Yeah.
small changes?
Wow, that's a big question. I'd say, creative. Like right now, I was in just a creative meeting with my team, and we're coming up with pitches for a financial organization. And creative has to be linked to something, to some insight regarding the brand. It has to be linked with something. It can't be just a series of crazy expensive ideas, because they have to lead to something. They have to lead to an ending that you know ideally changes something in the audience, right? Even when you look at an Uber example of B2C creativity, I'm on a horse, that whole thing with Old Spice commercials, right? That always led to something that you watched it at the end, you said, okay, I know why that was so crazy. And I think, and I try to explain that to my clients and to my team, is that creativity, just for creativity's sake, is just throwing money away. There are some plus and minuses, but creativity should come and should connect with the audience, right? So for us, knowing, there's a lot of, and everybody on LinkedIn is saying, oh, you got to know your audience, or do the research, and now a lot of people say, what does that mean? And it means actually, the best way is to talk to your audience. It's kind of to your customers, and ask them, hey, what did you like about this? Why do you like us? Why do you do that? It's difficult for us as let's say, an agency, to be able to, and not all brands want to give us access to their customers, so we can do that research. So it's very important that they do it, that their marketing teams do that on their own, kind of regularly, with the help of sales, just to know what's in the mind of their customers, why they chose that brand, or maybe why not. If you have tons of money, you can buy the research. You can buy the data from Gartner. If you have more money, you can hire an agency to do the research for you. If you don't have the money, or you don't have enough clients to make that statistically interesting, Googling is the kind of best thing that I found. Googling memes, Googling jokes on Reddit, like you find your pain point, or find your USP, your benefit, your value add that you as a brand do. Add meme, add joke, Google it, and see what happens. And you'll see maybe people making fun of a brand, of a solution, or maybe they'll be supporting some solution of some brand, and you'll have some insight. And that sometimes that insight is like super important, at which makes or breaks a creative, because we're always in the creative, we're always looking for this spark, that this idea just fits perfectly into the overall image, into the overall strategy. And it's sometimes on a very visceral level that that works, like, oh, that's it. And I think that's what we're looking for. And without knowing what your audience cares for, it's very hard to do.
Yeah, I love that example about Googling with a GIF, those kind of things. I do that a lot of times. Like this morning, I did it. Like I was looking for, GIFs from Billions, because
Yeah.
they are one of the best out there, and it's all about
Oh
business,
yeah, yeah,
about dominating, about cursing, all
yeah, yeah, yeah,
all the saucy stuff. And and I like that because like GIFs, I equal them to engagement. Basically,
yeah.
that's the phase where you get out of the
Oh,
awareness and you get into the engagement, basically,
I
right?
mean, you can imagine, if somebody takes the time to create a GIF or a meme about your brand, they are very invested in it. It takes time. It really takes time and guts. So if it's a good thing, if it's a good GIF, great stuff. If it's a bad one, ooh, you have to. Yeah, there are some things you have to take care of.
Yeah, but you can still use it. That's still an insight that you can
Oh
use.
yeah, that's an insight. That's a great insight. Yeah, I mean, there's one, if you search for Kubernetes, right, for the IT crowd out there, search for Kubernetes, you have so many memes about that. It's incredible that no one is actually, they'll be spending a lot of money talking about customers. What do you think about X, Y, and Z? Where in the memes, it's out there. The insight is out there. You can really, quickly figure out what you need, and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So, any insights on the other side of the story when we kind of know our customers, but
Yeah.
we have our story that we need to merge to the customers. So,
Yeah.
for example, we did the research, we saw the memes, we saw the gifs, but now we need to tell our story in our own way and kind of get all of these parts together.
Yeah, well, this is where I think the party is starting, because there's an endless list of things you can do, and there's an endless list of strategies and tactics that maybe that you want that message to go, that story to go through. So this is very difficult to I don't know, figure out how to explain this.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you're the guy that talks with visuals usually.
Yeah, it's so first of all, there has to be some sort of strategy, so that messaging, whatever the insight you found, and even before the creative, you need to know, you have to have a plan, like your yearly plan or a brand plan, that okay, this year we're investing in I don't know, in Google, or we're investing in TikTok, or investing in YouTube. That narrows down the range of endless possibilities of storytelling to the ones you want. Good briefing, I think, is invaluable to us, to a creative agency. The more specific, the better. Sure. I mean, there's this great research about better briefs, betterbriefs.com or org or whatever, and they have this great list of best practices, which are great. And they say, right, one tactical pain point or one tactical objective per brief. That's fine. Sure, that would be ideal. But realistically, we live in a place where there are a couple of objectives, right? Like three, I think, is fine. That you can work around three objectives to figure out how to do that. Sometimes those objectives are vague and are easily to accomplish. Sometimes they're not. But that sets the tone for the creative. And without that, you could spend a lot of time and money and just burn money by us figuring out ideas, throwing them to you, and you'd be saying, no, that's not what I want. But what do you want? Well, I don't know, think of something and we'll tell you what we like.
Yeah,
That could go on
you're the
right?
expert, right? You're the expert.
That could, I mean, yeah, it's also like, if you like, you could hire an agency, you can hire a freelancer, you can ask somebody internally to come up with creative, but you have to put some trust in them, whoever that is, right? Even if that's your internal marketing guy, if you feel that they're going to do the good job, let them do their process and come up, and trust them in the end, right? If especially when you're outsourcing because you don't want to recruit full time the best possible people you can. You're outsourcing that to an agency, to a freelance organizations, or to a freelancer. And I think if you're paying money, you should kind of give them at least some trust that they know what they're doing. Unless you're just finding people randomly, then no. But if you do your due diligence, if you research them, if you find what other customers talk about them, maybe your friends work with them, and when you find that and you give them a chance, be prepared that you have to kind of, you're letting go of the wheel a bit, not the entire time, just a bit, right? And because it may go into magical, surprising places.
Yeah, you reminded me now of there's a video on YouTube. Actually, it's a series of videos that talk about I'm the expert, I can do anything. I
Yeah,
don't know if you watch that, but it's
I
amazing. I
haven't seen
recommend
that.
to anybody. I'll send you the link and I add them in the description. But basically, they come in. There's a CEO, there's a manager, and there's the expert, right? And
Yeah.
they came
Oh
up
yeah, that
with
one.
anything.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen that. Yeah.
it's
So
amazing.
it's like that's like, fortunately for us, that I don't think that never happened with us. We were fortunate enough to have clients who were more or less like on the same page. I wouldn't say, but that feels like something that might happen. I wanted to say something, but I forgot.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
The,
It will come back.
it'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is one obstacle that I want to mention here, since we are talking about now creativity, storytelling being executed in the B2B tech environment. And there
Yeah.
is this part that's called tech, right? There are a lot of introverts, there are a lot of products
Yeah.
which are made and sold to the people just sitting like we are, like next to the laptop, to computer, and basically, that's everything that they do. And now, they're selling it. It means that for sure there's a usage for it. There are certain jobs that people do that affects them. There are biases inside it. But then it's much harder than if you're doing like an Amazon commercial, like that Christmas one that a few days, weeks ago, Mark Ritson shared,
Yeah.
where basically two old ladies, they order a sled, they go downhill on snow, and basically takes them back to the childhood. That's like perfect. But in B2B, it's hard to have that emotional moment.
Yeah. Well, I think yes and no. Like I wouldn't say that B2B is selling to people, who are doing the in front of the computers, but you're selling to an organization. And of course, it's slightly different than selling to B2C because you have more people involved in saying yes. But I wouldn't say it's less emotional. It's emotional, but kind of different. I've spoken with a VP of sales from a large tech firm, and they say that the secret that sales guys know is that people buy very emotionally. Like, sure, you're buying $100,000, let's say, worth of technology, right? You have to have sign off by a lot of your, buying committee and so on. And I saw somebody write that that compares in B2C not to buying Coca-Cola, but to buying a house. Right? It's the same big investment. And I agree. And in both those situations, it's super emotional, right? It's not emotional to buy a Coke. The advertising is emotional, but it's not emotional for the buyer. It's emotional for you to you're spending your life savings on a house. You're fucking emotional. You're recommending to the board that they spend $1,000, $100,000. You're risking your career on that bet. You're risking your future. You're risking basically your family's future on that if you're recommending the right product to buy to the board. To me, that's super emotional. I'd be stressed. And I guess people who make those decisions in the end are super stressed as well. And that's emotion. I think a lot of salespeople know that. And the best salespeople use that emotion. They build trust. They build likability. They build a lot of stuff that we now know, or a lot of people now say that should be in the marketing's role. That should be in the marketing's role. In B2B, that was usually that emotion, I think, and maybe people are going to hate me for it. And I think that emotion was in the sales process, usually, right? You had to, I'm not saying, taking the client out to steak dinner or playing golf, but you're building an emotional connection that somebody says, all right, I'll trust you with my $100,000. So having said that, I think that's pretty big insight. And I think for most companies, what they're doing in marketing and when they're trying to leverage that emotion is to build trust. And I think they're doing, I don't want to say that they're doing a bad job. They're doing an okay job at it, right? They're not making it super emotional. Like, again, when somebody says, oh, B2B shouldn't be emotional, it's not about making people cry. It's not that level of emotionality. But if you really, really want to work with a brand, right? If you really, really like that brand, I don't know, let's take mini NBA with Mark Ritson, because that's the only thing that pops into my mind. That's a B2B kind of product, right? That's fairly expensive. That's an investment. That's for professionals, right? Sometimes for companies. And I remember I've been lurking around that brand for years. Like, oh, I want to find that budget and finally be able to do that, right? That's building brand, that's building emotion, that's building trust, right? And then I come up to my partner and said, dude, we have to, I need that. And he says, okay. And again, in the buying process, if the buying committee is like, we got to work with that brand because they're fucking amazing. Plus there's the features, the benefits, the cost, everything works, right? It's not like they're going to buy just on the emotion. But if all brands have very similar features, have very similar benefits, have a very similar price structure. Like if the data, the technical things are very similar, what's left to differentiate between them? It's the emotion. It's the emotion of if those people in the conference room like that brand or like the guy, the sales rep who's been talking to them for the past year. And they say, oh, we like John. Yeah, let's give it to him. Yeah. But it's not only emotion, right? So it has to be, you have to level the playing field with the technical details and that the emotion is on top. And I think that's what confuses everybody because they think that it's only the emotional aspect of storytelling that wins. But it's not. You have to have that base layer of features, let's say, down and perfect. And then you can work on the branding and the emotions and the creative storytelling.
I totally agree. I mean, I had here on the podcast a lot of people, and a few of them were talking about biases in B2B.
Yeah.
And, those are all important things because, why somebody doing something is related to the business, but also related to their own life, right? You just said one of the things, I can get fired if I made a
Yeah.
decision which is wrong, right?
Yes.
It may cost the company a lot of money, and I might get fired. So maybe I will make another choice, which is maybe, for me, not the best one, but it's, cheaper in that way. And if I fail, if I'm not sure, or it will give me
For
the
example,
leverage
yeah.
to kind of like a lot more time to think about the things, and to get
Yeah.
more in depth about some of the things, and then I will be able to switch. So we're not going to go for a longer contract or whatever it is. There are a lot of nuances over there hidden inside the company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on, and I find it very, I think, peculiar, for the lack of the better word, that when we get a brief and we see the target audience and we see the target profile and ICPs, it's usually, oh, that's the CISO or that's the analyst, and it's for him is important this that, but it doesn't take into account that there are different kinds of people, right? And for example, we've done ads and content for different tech shows like RSA, AW Reinvest, Black Hat, and when we were doing Black Hat, the client, which I found amazing, that the client said, dude, you have to remember that Black Hat is a different audience. They're geeks. They're more technical. They despise marketing talk. That's the brief, right? So we came with a totally crazy different creative, which was fun, which didn't force them to, into a marketing situation, that spoke their language, that was different, and was successful, right? And you have to understand that the analyst, sure, for the CISO, it's business. He may be more serious. He may be, I don't know, have a bigger lifestyle probably than the analyst, right? But the analyst may be nerdy. Like maybe, I don't mean do a co-sponsorship deal with Marvel, but let's at least at the very least don't put these two ICPs in the same project, in the same video, in the same campaign. You should talk to them totally differently. They have totally different responsibilities. They have totally different emotions regarding that, right? For the CISO, he'll be deciding on if he gets it wrong, he might get fired. If the analyst recommends a product and it doesn't work, he might not get fired, but there'll be something in it for him, right? There are different reactions to screwing up, for example, right, or to winning. So if anybody's listening there and you're trying to do a campaign or trying to do a video, for the love of God, don't put everybody in the same basket. Don't send out a brief saying we need a 30-second video that targets three different types of people, because that's not going to be interesting for any of them.
Yeah, you need to know exactly who you're targeting, and
Yes.
create accordingly to that. I was thinking about the thing we did recently, and it was, it's B2C, but it's one of the things that you mentioned. So people buying apartments, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in Belgrade who are different people who are buying apartments. There are Russians, there are people who want to move a little bit out of the city center. There are people who, I don't know, they're selling their houses in the
Yeah.
nearby places and coming to Belgrade and that part, which is not the city center. This is the first thing they think of when they think of Belgrade, from that perspective. And then you have layers, right? You have entrepreneur, you have somebody who, they are already living there, but they have their family they want to get here. For example, like husband and wife, they want to get the wife's mother here so she can help them with raising the children,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
A lot of different stuff in the company is the same. So you need to think about all those things. They all need to hear a different story. That's the most important thing.
But I think that's the issue, is that takes a lot of time and that takes a lot of effort to do. And when you're running a small marketing team or you're by yourself, like you'll struggle to do that, because there's a lot of work involved, and you probably have your day-to-day operations anyway that you have to think of. So I think I'm not saying that it's bad will. I think it's just that people, like especially in corporations, it's path of least resistance. If you can get away and if you can get away with the minimum amount of work, we'll do that, right? If you can order an asset that kind of talks to all of these people at the same time, it's not super good, but it's like it works, and then sales can make it work later on. That's fine, But if you're looking for something super specific, it should be these assets, these video assets should be scalpels for very specific tasks.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm waiting for landing page from a corporation until 1st of November. Yeah. And I told them, give me 200 euros and you'll have it in an hour. I'm still waiting for it. Yeah. That's how things go. But there is one thing that I always tell to the people, and I will say it now on the podcast so they can try to maybe implement it. When the big companies say we need to do this campaign, they just go all in with a full budget for that campaign. And they have this idea, okay, they certainly go into, creating a brief, talking about it, and coming up with things, but they don't talk with the audience, right? They talk inside the company usually, and they're here for a long time. So they already know the nuances, at least they think.
Yeah.
But there is one thing, if you go with something new, or if you with specific, it can be the selling proposition is a little bit different. It can be that the target group is a little bit different, or your approach is a little bit different. What I always suggest to the companies, create a small campaign. It can be on Meta, it can be on something which is not LinkedIn, which is most of the time expensive. Not if you look at it from the corporate side, but if you're looking for like mid-sized companies, and have 2 weeks for that before you get into that. Just test like USP, test like target audience, get one thing out of it, just one thing, so you don't need a huge budget. And see, for example, if you test like 3 different USPs, see which one gets you the biggest conversion. For example, if it's bigger than, I don't know, 4%, then this is the one. And then you can go and be more specific with that, right? And don't spend that amount of budget or the time in that.
Yeah, well, that's an ideal situation, right? And in the B2C world, not a lot, but some brands do focus tests, either on the storyboard before they commit thousands of dollars to production, or they do it at a later stage to see if they need to tweak the edit a bit, right? So there is that, and I understand that in B2B that would be difficult to do because there's just less people in the target audience, way less people, right? So it would be like if you're targeting CISOs, I think there's like I've Googled this. There are like 40 something thousand CISOs in America, right? Compared to hundreds of millions of regular consumers, right? So you'd have to focus test C-level executives like you can see that it's a problem on various levels. So what you're suggesting, I think that works, and I think it's the best idea to do. Another one, I think you mentioned that before on LinkedIn, and I see a lot of people pick that up, is to is to see, or maybe that was Gary Vee, but I mix you two guys very. Uh, is to go.
somebody told me in 2016 or 17 that I'm like the Serbian Gary Vee.
Hey, great stuff. And so it's to do organic, do social, and when you see something, once in a while you get engagement through the roof on something organic, and that's your insight for the ad, right? Run that as an ad, or
Love
work
that.
around that and do that as an ad, because something in that post or something in that organic creative worked and clicked with your right audience, and use that as the leverage, use that as the base idea, and try to reverse engineer what was good about it and try to put that in the ad and run it as a paid advertising, right? And yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I love that approach. The problem with that is that each approach has a problem, right?
Oh yeah,
Sort of a specific one.
you have to be doing organic and social, right? On some
Exactly.
level that it's but
A question. Tell me, are we on the deadline or we have a few more minutes?
yeah, we have a few more minutes, yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you which storytelling frameworks turned out to give the best results when you work with B2B tech companies? Just out on top of
Okay.
your head. You don't need to dig deeper.
That's a tough question. And I'll tell you why it's tough. Because, again, as we started talking about in the very beginning, how sometimes big organizations, the marketing's kind of, all over the place. And one of those, one of those things is that when we do a lot of creative for a lot of companies, sometimes they don't measure anything. Sometimes we do video and we don't know if it performed or how it performed. And sometimes the content that create, like, I don't want to say that we started doing dark social like before it was cool, but for example, we did an interactive choose your own adventure video. It was a 15-minute video. You had like dozens of options. You play as a CISO of a hospital, and you have to make the best technical, financial, and personal decisions to avoid disaster. And that's not an ad that you can plug into Google Analytics and see if it converts. It's not, right? It's used as a resource. It's used at conferences. It's used at small events. It's used by salespeople. It's used by marketing to leverage something. How do you measure that, right? It's very difficult to do. So most of our projects, most of our content lie in this gray zone. Let's just call it dark social for now, because there is some communication. People are engaged. They love it. They talk about it. Probably it spreads, but we don't know how well it works. The only feedback we get from the client is if they order a second tranche of the content. Like we did back in the day. This is something I think I shared today or yesterday. I will share tomorrow. Is a project that we did for Trend Micro, where they built a spaceship booth for RSA or AWS, right? It looked like a spaceship, and they said, "Oh, we'll have a small cinema there. We need some content that's engaging, that works within the whole infrastructure." So we made like a 5 minute, 6 minute, parody of Star Trek with like everything working together, working. The brand assets were involved in the script, the technology, how they work, and everything was based around their way of doing business and their way of securing, right? And we knew that it was great because suddenly they said, "Oh, we need you to make costumes for the hostesses. We need to add some stuff," right? We knew that people were engaging in a very big way, and mostly because let's say, "Oh, we need a new version for next year," right? So we knew that works, but it's hard to gauge. It's hard to measure, and I think for a lot of marketers in the B2B realm, doing something crazy, doing a storytelling video, right, which is not an ad, it's going to be very difficult to measure the success of that, because It's not like somebody's going to click on it and buy from Google, and Google's going to make an attribution. And there are very brand oriented projects, so you should consider that it's a long-term investment, and you have to figure out a way how to measure that, either through talking to sales, that when they have the how did you hear about us form, that maybe they ask about that content. Have you seen that content? You have to create an infrastructure of data gathering in your organization to be able to leverage and to show your bosses that, hey, this worked. Like this worked in a way that's different from what's currently happening. I hope that answered the question. It's very convoluted.
Yeah, and you actually reminded me of a thing that I think we need to constantly remind people, and especially the companies, that inside your company Slack or whatever it is, the platform that you are using, have a channel and automate the feedback so everybody can see it, right?
Yes.
From that perspective. And then when it times comes for you to actually choose what you're going to do creatively on that side, then you see what's being repeated most of the times. What sticks, then it's easier for you to choose what you're going to talk about.
And I think this is something, additionally, coming back to what I said, and this is something, again, what I think you talk about all the time, is that even if you do this kind of complicated content that's hard to measure, just make a trailer and use that as an ad that links to the main content, and use that as paid media, and track that. That you can track. And if you spend a lot of money on doing a 60-minute video or content or a podcast, break that up, which I know you'll do. Break that up into smaller chunks, break that up into 10-second pieces or 30-second pieces, throw it on TikTok, throw it on Instagram, throw it on YouTube, see what works, right? See what messages within that big content work, and then you can work around that somehow.
Yeah, when you get those answers, then I suggest you go to Wojtek and his Black Rabbit team, and
I invite you all.
get them. Listen, there is one important thing, and get them to help you. But before you do that, go ahead and listen to the episode that I recorded with Alexander Ashkovic when we talked about YouTube SEO. Because there is one thing that he said, audio needs to be perfect. But just two guys sitting and talking with each other, that thing becomes boring as fast as the fast train is coming.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, which is becoming the number one search engine, basically you need to be entertaining. And it's hard for tech guys, for everything. But no. I will give you the space to say. Just wanted to say, but you can record something like this while in a limo. You can have, as Ashkovic says, like naked chicks throwing you champagne while you are talking about business, about B2B. Then you can at the end eat some mushrooms, to make it more interesting. But you need somebody like you and your team to help you do that creatively, to think about the creative stuff.
Yes, I agree.
That's the thing. That's why I said go to Wojtek and his team, because they will help you out with that thing. A lot of people from IT companies are introverts. There are a lot of people. I don't want to say not creative. There are people like in every company who are entertaining, who care about specific things, but maybe they need help channeling those things and actually showing them. And this is exactly what you do.
Yeah, I mean, just very quickly, one of the things that we like to do with the client, because basically the client, like you guys, your product, your brand, your customer, right? If you do everything correctly, you are the trove of knowledge, and so when we come in, I don't pretend that we know more than you do. You're the client, right? So one of the best ways to do it is to do a small workshop and to talk with you guys and to do a brainstorming. And there are a lot of great ideas in marketing teams that were, for some people were forced down, and they don't want to be the ones to say, I have this idea. But in a workshop environment, in a safe space, that thing comes up, and it's very, very useful. And it's sometimes sometimes it's those ideas that work best.
Well said. Guys, now go back to the beginning of the episode, listen to everything that we said. if you are listening to this, just warming up in the beginning, listen to everything that Wojtek said. He says some great things, some great insights that you can use. If you have anything that you have doubts about, or you need more answers, or you need him and his team to help you out around the things, or to even give you the feedback, go ahead, send him a message. He's an approachable guy. He'll respond. If you said that you are listening to the Funky Marketing podcast and coming from that, nobody ever did that, but maybe you can be the first one. We'll give you an award if it happens. But make sure to do that. Wojtek, now tell them, where do they go to find more information about you?
Yes, well, it's very simple. We're called Black Rabbit, so it's www.blackrabbit.pl. Everything's there. If not, you can find me on LinkedIn. Somebody's probably watching this on LinkedIn, so you can DM me, easily found. And yeah, love to help, even just explaining and giving you a helping hand. We don't have to commit to anything. Let's just have fun.
Perfectly said. Guys, now, as we always say at the end, keep it funky and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you.